Today we will, for member statements, hear from the honourable members for the districts of Exploits, St. George's Humber, Stephenville-Port, Burin-Grand Bank, and Terra Nova. The member for Exploits.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in this honourable House to congratulate the Trinity United Church of Botwood on their October 16th, 2016 celebration of 90 years of good works in the community. I had the pleasure of celebrating this milestone with the congregation, town leadership, and friends from far and near at what was a memorable day of worship and the breaking of bread. For 90 years, the Trinity United Church has been ministering and providing spiritual guidance to the community of Botwood. Mr. Speaker, on a personal note, this is the church that as a youth I attended many activities throughout the years, and it's the church that I have the pleasure of being greeted by each and every morning. Mr. Speaker, I ask all honourable members to join with me in wishing for the Trinity United Church congratulations on these 90-plus years and Godspeed on their continued march to a centurion celebration. Thank you.
The honourable member for St. George's Humber.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to a group of dedicated volunteers on the southwest coast of the province who are combining their love of the outdoors with a respect for fallen soldiers. Colin and Cindy Seymour, along with other volunteers in the area, are ready to place 158 yellow ribbons, one for each Canadian soldier who lost their life in the war in Afghanistan, along a hiking trail leading to Mark Rock Mountain just outside South Branch. There is a monument honouring Sergeant Craig Gillum of that community. Gillum died in Afghanistan on October 3rd, 2006. He was 40 years old. Members of the Gillum's family say they are honoured by the dedication being put into the hiking trail up to Mark's Rock. Knowing that people still remember and care about the soldiers who paid the ultimate sacrifice is truly touching. I ask all members of this House to join with me in showing their appreciation and dedication to this group of volunteers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for the district of Stephenville-Port.
Mr. Speaker, our children will eventually be our future leaders, and as such, preparing them for this inevitability requires education and training in leadership roles. In a recent visit to Lord's Elementary on the Port-au-Port Peninsula, I saw firsthand how valuable this practice can be. Miss Marcia Alexander's grade 7 social studies class has undertaken a practical learning exercise in which the classroom has become a mini replica of our House of Assembly. With only 13 students, the ad hoc House of Assembly required some minor tweaking that is unable to include all electoral districts. However, this has only encouraged the students to engage in much broader debates. Interestingly, in this classroom, the student who plays the member for Stephenville-Port, Katie Gastia, also happens to be the Minister of Transportation and Works. And conveniently, the Premier happens to represent my neighbouring district in St. George's Humber.
Hear, hear.
Hats off to Ms. Marcia Alexander for taking a unique approach to teaching our children about our political system while inspiring these leaders of tomorrow. Also, a sincere thank you to our students and school principal, Ms. Allison March, for inviting me to their school. Thank you. Enjoy the broadcast.
The honourable member for the district of Burin-Grand Bank.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, during the fall sitting of the House, new laws were passed to help curb impaired driving. Amongst those advocating for changes were various chapters of Mothers Against Drunk Driving in the province, including the Burin Peninsula chapter, Mr. Speaker. MAD Burin Peninsula does not confine its activities to lobbying decision makers. Rather, it is very proactive in tackling the social problem of drunk driving. Recently, it again demonstrated that proactive approach when it brought together students from across the Burin Peninsula at the Fortune Arena. As it did 3 years ago in Marystown, MAD Burin Peninsula held a mock crash, an event where various stakeholders such as first responders, the RCMP, and local performers came together to present a realistic scenario of a vehicle accident with horrific results, Mr. Speaker. Laws to deal with impaired driving are important, but it's MAD's belief that education is also vital in driving home that message. And in this case, education came from a very realistic and moving presentation, Mr. Speaker. I call on all members of this honourable House to join me in thanking the many participants who joined forces to make this event possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for the district of Terra Nova.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in this honourable House to recognize the efforts of a community charity in my district. Since its inception in 2013, the Power to Hope charity has raised funds in support of cancer-related programs and events across Newfoundland and Labrador. Over the past 5 years, Power to Hope's success has resulted in the excess of $250,000 being donated to programs like Young Adult Cancer Canada's Shade for the Brave campaign and the Dr. H. Bliss Murphy's Cancer Care Foundation. This past weekend, volunteers with Power to Hope organized Sean's Journey in recognition of Sean Avery, an 18-year employee at the Terra Nova Golf Resort, who walked most days between his home in Bunyan's Cove and Port Blandford. Initially diagnosed in 2004 with a cancerous tumor, Sean carried on for 10 years until on Christmas Day in 2016, he succumbed to the deadly illness. Sean was 48. Sean was well respected. He had a remarkable memory for hockey stats and birthdays, and he was best described as everybody's friend. I ask all honourable members to join me in recognizing Sean's legacy and the Power to Hope charity for their commitment to fighting cancer.